Good morning, my friends, and might I, if you are, for those that are here, be the first to welcome you to the grand opening of the Tysantopia Museum of Flash Game History. That's right. Thanks to some very generous donations from sponsors in Tysantopia, we have been able to open this museum and show off some of the recent artifacts we have discovered from our digs. Now, it is again a miracle that we are able to do this kind of thing. For quite simply, for most of the history of this museum or um, museum or culture, we have had no opportunity to show it off. But today we will. Now, I am going to be your tour guide today, bringing you through the wonderful history of the golden age of entertainment, my friends. Now, it's quite a different place from where it was today. That's for certain. Back then, it was a wild, ruthless waste, a wild western land where anything goes, and for its better or worse, that was the charm of it all. I, Quincy, will be your tour guide today. And as the expert of entertainment, I will say this: the golden age of entertainment is one of the most interesting to study. I'm so glad to see people coming out to the museum to learn about it. Now, while we're at the museum, there's a couple of rules. Um, you cannot touch the games. You cannot be playing them. In fact, it's just because of the scarcity and we need to make sure they stay preserved. So I will be demonstrating these games to you all through the televideo device in front of you, and you may, when you have when you have when you want to know more about questions or comment about why certain aspects are the way they are, please make sure to refer those to the chat to the right side of the screen. That makes sure that not only do I answer all your questions, but that you learn as much as possible from the Museum of Flash Game History. Now, we know we meant to start our tour at 3 p.m., but I know lots of people tend to come late, thinking it's fashionable for these things to show up just a little bit late. Well, TikTok, my friends, we've got we've got a showcase to do, and never enough time to do it. There are plenty of games for you today. Of course, it's going to be a fun one. So sit back, relax, and let's begin moving towards the first artifact that we had discovered. Cola, welcome to the stream and welcome to the Tysantopia History, the Tysantopia Museum of Flash Game History. I'm glad to see you could join us on our tour today. We're going to be going through some of the ancient artifacts of the golden age of entertainment, and I will be your tour guide, Quincy. How has your day been treating you, Mr. Cola, sir, as we get the first game ready to go? It's been chilling. I'm glad to hear I will say the golden age of entertainment is quite something to be sure. The developments and things that people were able to make during the age was unlike anything we have ever seen before. Pat, as well, don't worry. This show or this museum, this tour will be a relaxing, as I will be demonstrating the games to you. Now, of course, as we get everything ready for that, these games are very old, so keep that in mind. But I think even with their age, we can still learn something from them, even if they aren't even if they aren't maybe as acceptable today. It tells us about the history of the golden age of entertainment. Without that, the first game, the first artifact on our list, is Bubble Tank. Now, this one was discovered just off the coast in one of the port districts. It was found on an old floppy disk. This floppy disk was we don't know entirely sure what this game was meant to be, as any recording of it in our history books has been gone. But we are going to start with it now. Let us see what this game has to offer, shall we? An interesting loading screen. These are very common of games of the Golden Age, as they didn't have the electricity to quantum computing yet. WASD keys to use. Oh yes, one thing very important to tell you about the Golden Age of Flash. Many games during the Golden Age of Flash used what was called a keyboard, and this was a multi-buttoned device where each button had a letter inscribed on it. Now I know most people today are used to using the head chip to send messages to each other, but luckily I'm a bit of an old man. I've picked up a couple of tricks on my research. Use your mouse to aim and shoot. Moves outside of this bubble to... You have jumped a new bubble field. Destroy bubble tanks to make your tank stronger. Interesting. This movement, this idea of bubble tanks. Now this is... Now what is this? Receiving damage from enemies will weaken your tank. If you are hit and have no bubbles, you will be ejected to the safest adjacent bubble. Interesting. Now, good luck. Now, we don't know what this was. Well, some games back in the Golden Age were made just not for artistic purposes. They were others were made for military reasons. Ejected. Ah yes. I see you've heard of some of the. I see Cole. You've heard of some of the Silver Age games. I believe that is a reference to. I believe it is Amongst Us. It's we don't have the proper name, but that's the loose translation of it. Amongst Us. It was a quite a popular game during the Silver Age. Really amongst us, amongst ourselves. Exactly. You I didn't know Cole, you were quite the connoisseur, and I don't know, quite the connoisseur of history. A bit of a scientist yourself, you may say. It was a interesting. Yes, I believe that was one of the games that, when it had initially taken the world by storm, that there was a small pandemic, I believe. Oh, I might be getting my years mixed up on this one. I believe it was the Black Plague when Amongst Us came out. And it was during that time and its popularity of isolation that made it so popular with everyone. And honestly, it's probably what I would say was the beginning of the Silver Age of gaming. The Bronze Age just before then was a little lackluster. I thought it was called Kokane or Guinness? No. Kokane, I believe, was the Kokane, I believe, is one of the countries of the outside world, and then Guinness. Again, I might be getting my years mixed up, but you don't do 5 years of entertainment history for nothing. I believe. Am I moving? I believe Guinness was an old drink they'd used to. It was almost like one of the stimulants we'd use today. That makes you that would make you enjoy the experience of it more. Like Armor Games. Exactly. We believe this Armor Games is one of the key probably a liter. The information. Let me give you the current theory for this bubble tanks. Bubble tanks is currently believed to be some sort of military simulation game. But my goodness! And like many games of its time, the way it did its audio was quite primitive, vibrating waves at people. but we believe it was with either one of the governments or the major corporations of the time, as, well, quite simply, we believe this game was used as a training simulation for beginning soldiers. But we don't know much about the training simulations. The name Armored Games and the very militaristic design leads us to believe that in the old world, that they had something similar to bubble tanks, some sort of water and hydrogen-based military device. But to be quite frank, old military is quite barbaric. Most of the all of Tysotopia, we make sure to solve our problems more diplomatically, a lot less violently. The old world really never understood what diplomacy was for. My goodness. But yes, this Armored Games, we believe they've made many games, and I believe, keep an eye out, you'll be seeing Armored Games again later in our demonstration tour today. Now, it seems our bubble tank keeps growing, and if this is meant to be a simulation of some sort, it begs the question, whatever happened to all these tanks? Now, I'm no expert, but current working theories, even though some of my colleagues would call it crazy, one of my working theories is that these bubble tanks have evolved into something alien. Again, the Golden Age was a time not only of artistic interpretation or representation, but also a time of discovery, not only for the people there, but also for us. And so we suspect they might have discovered these bubble tanks and decided to, commandeer them as the old humans did, and make sure that they got the proper use out of them. But, as the old world does, they rarely understand the technology they use. We suspect that something must have gotten out of hand. And this Armored Games, this company that made this simulation, probably went under a lot of fire for training people how to use these devices that likely caused billions of deaths. Again, one of the working theories. There's been many theories, and we've actually been we opened it up to the people, as well as, quite simply, entertainment comes from people, and it's meaning from the people that play it. So we ask you, the people, what is your theories about what happened to these bubble tanks? What exactly caused them to disappear so suddenly without any kind of knowledge or anything of the sort? It just seems they up and vanished. Another one of the popular theories with these bubble tanks is that they grew alongside humans. You pop them? A silly joke. A silly joke, Corla. I'm sure, of course you pop them. Now, again, as someone as a scientist, I needed to remind you that this game, and by proxy the bubble tanks themselves, were released probably likely around over 1,000 years ago. And, well, quite simply, if you were to want to pop them now, it raise a couple of questions, to say the least. But I'm glad we have some people here with a sense of humor. It's not all serious here at the Museum of Flash Game History. We can have a fun time with everyone. It's never all serious things. Or it can be a bit funny. Yes, one thing we do know, speaking of popping them, is that we can tell because of the fields of bubbles themselves, that this bubble material, whatever they were made out of, was incredibly strong. Almost certainly stronger than any material we have here at Tysotopia. In fact, Again, as demonstrated by this military simulation, the only thing that can top these bubbles are other bubbles itself. This game reflects the humor of 2020. Yes, I'll agree. I think if you take a further back approach, loud equal funnier or something like that, I agree. Again, of the old times, the mixing was not the best. They didn't have the technology, but it did describe, I believe, describe 2020 of when was 2020? 20, about, yeah, I think about 35 years ago. In 2020, the culture was loud is quite funny, and people would be going on their TikToks and their vineyards, and it would be these videos. Not to get too off topic, we're here about the games, but there would be these videos where it would be some sort of video display, but they would apply these filters and these distortions to the audio, much like how when you get near a microwave, your head chip distorts. That would cause it to be what colloquially we call deep fried. Basically, a very high color concentration. But yes, this is kind of this is the showing of just exactly what the outside world was like a long time ago. And we're going to and with this in mind, I believe it's going to be time for us to move on to show more of what we can learn from these golden age video games. Does anyone have any questions about Bubble Wars or its meaning for the old world and what it represents as we finish up this last bubble? There we go, and we will be transferring over. It seems like this game, while a military simulation, the enemy AI is simplistic at best for a modern mind like most Tysantopians. It's too simple. My grandpa once told me that a long time ago, people actually had to use physical controls with their hands. Is this true, or is grandpa making it up? Believe it or not, Kola, actually it was true. In fact, again, this game here, it uses an old keyboard. Again, a buttoned device with letters on each key, something we haven't seen in years since the head chips. And they had these other devices as well. Let's see. Oh, that was Spirit. My goodness, Kola. My apologies. I had mixed up your names. Spirit. Yes. In fact, back in the day, there was they had this device, and this is a surprise to it. It was called a controller. It was called a controller, and it used buttons and sticks to move around on the games. I know, again, quite a hard concept to wrap a modern Tysantopian mind around, but I assure you, it's what they did, and you have to keep that in mind as we go through these games, the culture of them. Now, we talked about Bubble Wars, a game about the history, and now we move on to something less militaristically driven, and something more intellectual. Grandpa also told me they didn't have to buy clean air back in his day. It was just a breathe free of charge. Was that true, or was that a communist lie? Well, I think first thing I should say is that to everyone as a reminder that this stream, not this stream, but this museum, the Tysantopia Museum of Flash Game History, was sponsored entirely by the Tysantopia History and Archaeological Association. So that is important to get out of the way first. Now, with that in mind, I believe that back in the day, air did used to be cleaner, but it's only 2022. It's gotten too much worse. You've only need to wear a mask for about 8 to 10 days. Is the 8 to 10 hours a day to stay safe is what the current guidelines suggest from the president. Indeed. Just it was a precaution, I believe, when I again, the history is a bit loose with the timeline of everything, but when during the old days when they were using these keyboards and controllers, the people they would talk about a climate change. And well, again, we can't know exactly what this climate change was. We can make guesses at it. Um, we can make guesses at what this climate change was. It's just some of these older games, they take a moment or two to set up. Again, the technology is a bit outdated. But we all seem to be ready to move on to our next artifact and exhibit. My friends, welcome to what they called the idiot test. Now, this is something we found, oops. This was something we found in an old library, an old library, I believe called Arkanaw's Library. Now, this test, the ultimate idiot test is its full name. Um, we don't know exactly how smart the people were in the old world, but using this test, we've been able to come up with some assumptions about what life was like and what the average intelligence used to be. So let us go through the instructions. So you can come along with me, as it's a test. You have most likely played the previous games in the idiot test, so you should know what to do. But just in case, here's a little help. Use the mouse to click. Don't be an idiot. If you are an idiot, then shut down the computer and stay away from sharp objects. Pass this game, vote 5. Something important, I think, to describe for this game, as it has mentioned a mouse. That is another one of these ancient artifacts. They used a small light to maneuver a cursor on the screen. Again, usually nowadays you sync your head chip to the screen with blue teeth, but back in the day, that technology was at least 600 years out. Now, again, this is a test. We use this to determine how smart they are. Crit Destroyer, welcome as well. Welcome again to the Museum of Flash Game History, sponsored in part by the Tysantopia History of Archaeology. We'll be showing you games and kind of going over what the history was of the significance of this game. Press the green button to continue. Seems simple enough. We go to the green button, we press it. Very good. Press the yellow button to continue. Now, I know color blindness has been increasing, is higher than ever in Tysantopia, but I assure you, this button here is the yellow one. Great. Press the orange button, close to yellow, but it is not. Blue button, that is going to be the next one we press. Enjoy. And yes, I would like to remind you, this is a ongoing Q&A. If you have questions about what what the games meant to the people back then, or what kind of entertainment they used back then, please feel free to direct it to me. I spent 7 years at the UTT, University of Tysantopia, studying this kind of things. I would love to answer, and I'm always happy to engage quiet minds about what this is. The blue button, there we go. Press the red button as well. Congratulations. It seems, again, a way to determine whether someone could at least pass in a primary school. Again, more of a color blindness test at the end of the day. Press the red, then blue buttons to continue. Now, I do need not think I say this again. These people, thousands of years ago, were incredibly underdeveloped. What is color blindness and why are we seeing more of it? Well, simply color blindness. Do you have Tysantopia University branded merchandise? We are currently working. The president has been trying to discuss getting proper merch for the university. There's not right now. It's exclusive to students and academia, but I suspect that the museum, thanks to its sponsorships, may be able to get some. Then the color blindness spirit you had asked. So I believe most people have it already. I myself, the only reason I know which buttons to be pressing is that I've done a lot of trial and error. They say back a long time ago, maybe around 700, 800 years ago, that people were able to see many, many more colors than we are. For example, you might notice this button here in the center and this button in the top right. At least to myself, it looks to be almost effectively the same. But due to my history and studying, I know that, like in all likelihood, that this is an orange button and this is a red one. A yellow, as again, harder to tell, but stands out the most. So again, press the red then blue button. Okay, red. Oh. I must be mistaken. Oh, just, I must have been mistaken that, about what the colors were. It doesn't seem the passwords work either. we'll just get there real quick. You know, again, like all experts in the field, I have no qualms admitting when I'm wrong. So it must be red, then blue. Press the smallest button. Now we have to talk about size delineation. Again, smallest in this context will refers to the size or diameter. So it's going to be this one down here, which, so you know, is yellow. The largest button is green in this case. Press the green button twice, then red. Okay, green, green, red. That wasn't a bit. I actually fucked it up. Well, it seems that these people back in the old world, they had much like higher expected intelligence than most Tysontopians, even though the common theory is that they were far underdeveloped compared to where we are today. So dumb. No. Well, again, many Tysontopians are colorblind. I myself, again, I happen to have at least some partial color blindness due to my parents, but again, for the most part, am I dumb? What is going on? Press the red, then blue. Red, blue. There we go. Oh my goodness. Almost, people are gonna start thinking I don't know what I'm talking about on this stream. I mean, this exhibition. Green button, red. Again, 7 years at UTT. Press the yellow button 3 times and the orange button twice. Again, very hard for people that are colorblind in Tysontopia. But follow my lead here. If you ever become, you may be able to get the chance to do it yourself. Yellow, yellow. There's 3 yellows and 2 oranges. 1, 2, and that one was asking for speed. That's why I didn't explain it. So, as we continue through this a bit more, and the password circle, in case you ever find a copy, there was we suspect this is basically how our equivalent of a modern IQ test, where that first level was for very young children. The second one was for people about to loosely what would be equivalent to age 24 at this point in Tysontopia. And this one we suspect is for most young adults to middle-aged folk. 2 greens, 1 yellow, 3 blue. Let's say it with me now. Green, green, yellow, blue, a blue, and blue. Press triangle. Well, again, colorblind is no longer an issue. A triangle, however, you may not know. A triangle, again, geometry has been long gone of the Tysontopian curriculum. A triangle is a shape that has 3 sides. The reason we don't teach it anymore is that triangles aren't very useful for anything, especially engineering. Once we discovered hyperspace, that we discovered a much more efficient shape to use. Press the circle, circle, circle. We are toe. Now this we suspect this level is some sort of all adult. Exactly. And this year on average is for people aged 7,285 to 4,932. A good joke, you know. We do have a bit longer lifespans than the old world folk. I believe in the old world this would be about 32 to 50 or so, you know, that peak intelligence. But again, in a more modern understanding, that's might be somewhere around 78 to like maybe like 106. So again, square twice, triangle twice, then circle. Square, square, triangle, triangle, circle. Old world folk. Exactly. It's a again, we've come a long way in 1,000 years of technology. What is this? This is the letter H, like math. Now again, math is something that hasn't been taught for years. If you ever needed any information about numbers and calculations, we would use the head chips and just put it onto the network, and the network would simply give the answer to us in picoseconds. But I guess I'm an old timer and I'm a bit of a fan of this thing. 8 plus 7, 15 minus 2, that's going to be 13, my friends. Call that a history lesson from an old man. Now, this is talking about order. This isn't a math lesson, you guys aren't here for that, but rest be assured, 16 plus 14 brings us to 30, times 2 is 60, minus 45, good news, that is 15. Circle, square, triangle. Now, at this point, we will get into questions that are incredibly difficult. We don't know exactly who they were intended for, as their difficulty was just simply unexpected of people from the old world. Like this. Science, press the atomic symbol for copper. Coupe as well. Welcome to the Museum of Flash Game History. I hope everyone is enjoying it. We are talking about one of the old world intelligence tests in a form of a game called the Idiot Test. Is that a waistcoat? Today well, of course, as it is standard in the Museum of Flash Game History, I am here wearing suspenders, pants, and a nice button-up shirt. It's K for copper, right? Now, I'm my man turned Amish. Ah, yes, again, one of the old world cultures. K for copper, that is what I do believe as well, I'm going to be honest. Damn. Fuck. Let us try this one more time. I didn't look at the passcode either, so we can't skip too far ahead. 13. Woohoo. Kind of trip. I will say, the museum had a bit of a hard time trying to figure out the proper uniform for the employees, as today is our opening day. However, it was a miracle that the opening day seems to be a bit of a slower one. Didn't the Amish go extinct when human consciousness merged with the singularity? I think Spirit, I think Spirit. That's one of the that's what I think you're thinking of, one of the old outdated history books. The singularity is a term we don't like to use anymore. The president prefers the term watching network, protecting network, to make sure that we're all that prefers the term protecting network, not singularity. Copper. Well, I believe it would be CO then for copper. No, my goodness. Well, we will see what is it then. Perhaps CU. Amazing. The Amish are divided at the moment. The ones super hardcore conservative and the more modern ones. Yes, some of the, I believe I get the years wrong, but there's definitely some old Amish traditions that are, well, interesting, definitely a bit outdated. I believe one of my favorites learning about was, I believe it is when someone that is Amish or turns, I believe it is 18, or maybe I'm thinking of a different group, turns 18 or so, they will they will leave for a year to the, quote, normal world, and then come back in a year and decide if they want to leave the Amish family, where they have to leave everyone and leave forever, or they stay Amish for their life. Spirit, well, of course, just because I use such an outdated term does not mean that there's a single doubt in my mind that the network is our friend. Exactly. Me too. But I understand it, and sometimes, again, I'm an old soul. It's hard to it can be hard to slip away out of old habits. Circle twice, square 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Triangle. I do still like math. 4 minus 3 is 1. 7 is 14. My God. 12 minus 2 is 10. 30. 17. Average. Hamster. Now, again, this was luck and trial and error. I think it was anywhere from 16 to 23. Spirit, I didn't know you were an old world aficionado either. Again, it seems we have a lot of experts at the time. This level we don't suspect is possible. No one in Tysantopia has beaten it. I can show you what it looks like. You can see it asks for the red, green, yellow buttons. Red, green, yellow. Red, blue, orange, yellow twice. Now the color blindness here really does stop becoming an issue. Red, blue, orange. Is just, honestly, it's quite simply not possible. We suspect that this part of the quiz was made as a sort of standardizing method to make sure that no one got a 100% on these quizzes. At least that's current working theories. Cheese pants. But either way, I open the floor to you, the people. This IQ test of the old world was a remarkable discovery when it came to trying to show us exactly how much they knew. Tomato should. There was, I believe, again, in one of the, was it Silver Age or Bronze Age? I believe in one of the Bronze Age games, it's called 2 Weeks. One of the Bronze Age games called 2 Weeks, they had a actual full city based on the now extinct tomato fruit. A full town, I believe is the term. But yes, I open the floor to the people if you have questions about what this game was to the old world, and maybe what they used it for, or what kind of cultural importance it had to them. Because simply, I know this is a short tour, but I cannot overstate how important for the understanding of Golden Age entertainment it was to figure out kind of what intelligence level we were looking at. Lean jort? I think one of my old grandparents used to have jorts. In fact, I believe he had one of those pairs of jeans, where you could zip it off. Cheese pants, tomato shirt, lean jort, yellow hat. Crit, I am a man of culture. And as a man of culture, I would like to say this. I personally, Quincy, don't have any fucking idea what you're talking about. Unless you're describing some sort of character. Given how difficult it is it possible this quiz was created before the advent of leaded gasoline? Interesting. Neither do I. Redskin. I suspect with the old world that this quiz was made somewhere in about 2000 or 2006 or so. And again, the old world's changed a lot in 1,000 years. But leaded gasoline, if my memory serves at that time, was already being phased out of the old world. And it was that kind of confusion of what, I think it's that lack of lead they had that might have caused, lack of lead in their system that caused them to devolve or undevelop their brains. At least, again, that's the current working theory. Like any science, things change. Cheese pants, tomato shirt, lean jorts, yellow hat. Neither do I. Redskin, I present you the reverse sandwich outfit. And I ask you, dear interviewer, What can I answer for you? May you please rate the fit. Cheese, pants, tomato shirt, lean jorts, bread skin. Now, let us see. I wouldn't say I'm a fashion guy. I'm a museum curator. I don't know too much about fashion. But I suspect the cheese pants is a very interesting style. I've seen a couple of Tyson-topians adopting it in some of the more, I think, hipster is one of the old terms for it, communities. And the yellow hat ties together the top and the full top half. The tomato shirt making a kind of clean connection between the hat and the pants. The jort kind of giving that impalling figure. And the bread skin is quite an expensive option, I will say. Skin replacements, while they have become cheaper over the last couple of decades, they definitely aren't available to everyone. But I definitely do think that if you had that money, that fit, as the kids are saying, would be on fleek. But the show must go on. Next up, we are going to be looking at another game, and again, it seemed this old world was very fascinated with combat and military. As when we look at this game, you may notice, as we look at this game, you'll notice that it is another fighting game. It is not just it's a game about violence yet again. I saw mine used on eBay 2. Yes, eBay 2 or eBay 2A, as some people have gone calling it. I prefer eBay 2, but again, I'm a bit of an old soul. But quite, I think you could sell it used for quite a while. The game we'll be looking at then, the artifact we'll be looking at next is Electric Man 2, the Tournament of Voltagen. Now, while Bubble Tanks showed us something very wide about military on a country and civilization-sized level, this shows us something much more intimate, something much more human. And that's what was entertainment like on a personal level. Now, I am unfortunately broke bad, so I sell my bread skin on eBay 2, always used. Yes, I've heard many of my colleagues that have gotten the bread skin or any skin replacement. The payments, they simply add up. There's some of the loan companies on the island are a little bit ferocious. Why did old reckoning creatures have such a fixation on violence of all sorts? That's a very interesting question. Again, it comes back to this idea of underdevelopment. Again, with the removal of leaded gasoline, this caused a 7 viewers? Holy fucking shit! With the removal of leaded gasoline, I believe that they begun to undevelop the ability to communicate properly with each other and have developed sympathy for the people around them. And because of this, their culture and art came from that. People are products of their culture. And art and entertainment is a product of their people. Now, as a product of its people, Electric Man 2 gives us something very interesting. It shows us that that even though we view them as old world creatures, they still did have some very, for the time, innovative technology. Let's begin to take a look. We will be going with Quincy. Quincy. As again, my name is no need to make it important. And we'll be going with, well, do you guys have a favorite color? You know, it's not just here to show for me. I want you guys, what would you like to see? There's an old saying I remember. It's this idea, and you can see over here as I explain a bit. They had what we would call electrical gladiatorial combat. Now, electrical gladiatorial combat is a very savage sport when you go into the research of it. But it was I played with Turquoise when you played. I'm sure you did, I know. I remember when I was a much younger boy and I first heard about these artifacts, I would play them in my mind all the time. Well, my studies have told me that people who that told me that people are usually who they make them to be. In order for a culture to inspire the old world's decision, they first have to believe on that culture. An interesting theory, I'll say. Let me read that again. While my studies have told me that people are usually who they make them to be, in order for a culture to inspire the old world's decisions, they first have to believe in that culture. I think Crit Destroyer, Mr. Destroyer, please. We're professionals. You may be onto something. It may not be that they were underdeveloped, but something a little more sinister. Perhaps they believed in that violence was the best solution. And again, you can't blame them for thinking that. It was 600 years ago. We're going to be going on a pro difficulty. Again, I've had a lot of time. I feel like it really helps give the experience of the gladiatorial combat. So of course, again, using this keyboard, we can move and control. As I will go through the controls on the side. Charge out of the way. ASD. There you go. Grandpa told me that all humans, much like us, were slave to memes, the DNA of the soul. Yes. In fact, again, Spirit, your grandpa seems to be quite the knowledgeable man. Charge. If you're surrounded, the kicks will change if there are people behind you. If you're running, grabs will change if you're running while executing them. Attack to use the attack to respond that way, cause themselves. QWE for slow motion. Far more powerful, but they use up battery points. Bam, and you can see how violent it is. Yes, so again, in a modern sense, to give again context to everyone that's not a master of the history of old world history. There was this idea of a meme where initially it was a genetic idea passed onto the soul. Whether this was for a squirrel, if you guys know what those are, to hide its food, or a bear to hibernate. Now, it developed a more colloquial sense to mean funny video, funny still video. If I know, maybe some of you, if your parents are still alive, if they talk about pictures, it's kind of like that. It's a picture with a fun punchline. We mentioned earlier, I believe, with Paula, that it was 2020 when the loud equals funny meme meta developed. And people would do anything for these memes. In fact, they would go as far out of the way as to physically prank and harm those around them just to get these memes out there. I think, again, it seems these old world creatures, their violence cannot be understated. I come from a rich family. My great grandpops got the immortality procedure done. My goodness, Crit Destroyer. I didn't know you came from such an affluent family. I must say, you must be pretty well off, to say the least. I would hope, maybe we can chat later and you can give me the opportunity to discuss with him. I suspect he may have more insights into this old world history than I do. The old world's such a mysterious place for us. And again, this violence, I want to discuss this for a moment. He's passed down so much knowledge throughout the family. May he rest in his eternal bliss. I didn't know he had passed. I'm sorry. Yes, and the procedure. Again, passing is an old term. I didn't know the procedure. It was while it keeps you immortal physically, the mind, at least at this point, was not developed enough to handle that kind of thing. And yes, I'm very sorry for your loss. It's always hard to deal with that. But again, he passed down so much knowledge, and again, I suspect. Do you remember his name? Because I'll be honest, the name Crit Destroyers did sound a bit familiar. I wouldn't be surprised if I ran into some of his works in my research about the Golden Age of Entertainment. because again, there were some amazing researchers before myself. One of the most popular ones is actually the president right now, Tyson. He actually spent a lot of time researching the old world and its entertainment before he became president. Yeah, so let us notice this, that we are fighting these frozen creatures in a gladiatorial combat. That, well, quite simply, we can only assume that this is what the people at the time did for their entertainment. That they would fight each other in these gladiatorial arenas. And not only that, but that this game shows us that somehow these people, they had a way to infuse themselves with electricity. Not electricity too, electricity. Benfactor Sham Debius Destroyer the Dr. Destroyer the 111th? My goodness, I recognize it. I know the name sounds familiar. It's he was one of the first people that proposed the he is one of the first people that proposed the not only the division between the Silver and Bronze Age, but was actually one of the people to found the Tysontopia History and Archaeological Association so many years ago. That's what I've heard that name before. But let me say this, Crit Destroyer. Again, I'm sorry about what happened to your father, but he's a hero, and he's doing so much for the modern world. You can't. And I'm glad to see that his child is here as well. But and this separation of Silver Age and Bronze Age was revolutionary, as the idea of this pandemic that took the world again. If my memory serves, it was in about 2019, 2020. It was the Black Plague, I believe, where when there was a pandemic, and the people at the time, quite simply, didn't have the availability to make the games they could about war, because they were too busy worrying about surviving. And it kind of shows in some of the Bronze Age games that they lack that innovative spark that the Golden Age of Flash had. That's one thing that Flash had in abundance, is that when it was first discovered that anyone could use it. Back then, they couldn't clone computers, so to make programs on multiple computers, quite simply, they had to make the program and then use some sort of storage device. Like, it's like your head chip, but if the head chip wasn't in your head, but something you could hold, a physical device. My grandpappy once told me those theories at a time he was building, and suddenly robots he called the Terminators. Apparently, they took over the world. Took over the world? The Terminators. Now, I haven't heard of a Terminator, but there has been one very big question in the old world history that we have not been able to answer. And that is, well, quite simply, where did this Black Plague come from? Many people haven't seen. Initial theories were that animals were could have transferred. Animals could have transferred it, but he told me that story that never took him away. If you would care to discuss that theory a bit more of what those things that you named were called, and also what they might be. That was truly the moment he lost his mind. Yes, let me say this. Crit, if you would like to discuss what again, those things you said the name of were, and maybe what the impact was, we can discuss that not during the demonstration. Are you suggesting you again? No, my friend. That is not at all. I'm not here. And again, the network isn't this 1984-esque network that's overseeing the country. Not the country. It is a country. Overseeing the island and country. It's meant to, it's protect and help people. Genuinely. I don't think I've known any, I can say this with certainty. I want to make this very clear. I do not know anyone that has been abducted by the network and never seen again. Capiche? But it's the old world entertainment we're talking about. I thought all the countries fell when the network created world peace. It's complicated. You're not wrong per se. The network is benevolent, the network is your friend. Exactly. And again, I want to point this out. I've spent much time studying this game, and I am not able to get this far. It shows how brutal gladiatorial combat used to be. The network is benevolent. The network is your friend. The network is benevolent. The network is your friend. Remember that. Remember that. Remember that. What, again, current theories is that, of course, as you all know, Tysantopia is a little isolationist. Sing the anthem right now to prove your loyalty to the network. For complete unrelated, I want to play some Paranoia. The network's national anthem. Well, of course. Let's see, because it's changed a couple of times. Let's see if I can remember how it goes. It was old, I believe. Glory to the network, protector of the land. Come to give us safety, a chip inside our head. Running from the night, giving us the light. Oh, comes the network, protecting us tonight. The national anthem, one of the many national anthems of the network. I'm no singer, I'm a museum curator, although might I say I do kick it up at karaoke night. You want me to write an anthem? I have nothing better to do, and it sounds like it could be fun. Spirit, I'm a museum curator. There's simply nothing to do. If you really want to write an anthem, I'd get in contact with Tyson, the president. I'm sure he's always looking for help to write things, or to scribe things. Of course, the national anthem already exists. If you get in contact with Tyson, I'm sure he could look for some help. But but I am a curator. I'm sure the president doesn't care about what I'm up to. But again, I dare say, tear it up at karaoke night. I'm truly one of the network enjoyers of all time. Exactly, it's a culture thing, you know. It's something, you know, when you take time to study history, you kind of learn about it, and you know, and history is this such an interesting thing of, you see how so many things have fallen in time. But the network has done a lot to help us as well. Of course, the network could be nothing without Tysantopia, without Tyson to kind of lead it. Fuck! I mean, Dawn. I don't swear. As you all know, and I want to make this clear, the network, while incredibly complicated and incredibly protective of our people, is a simple device, but nothing but a tool for our president to help make sure Tysantopia stays safe and everyone has the best life they can possibly have. It's thanks to the network, honestly, that we even found these Flash games, because quite simply, it was what gave us the idea of it's what gave us the idea of looking at old floppy disks and an old C drive. And hell, even an old quantum state computers, I believe, where the next game came from. Without the network, quite simply, we couldn't be here. And again, let's be clear. It's not. You're allowed to. Again, from what I've been told, you can talk negatively. It's a network. It's almost kind of like a person. It takes criticism, and you can learn. I don't think everyone can say they're entirely content with the network for everything it does, but it can learn. It can also hold feelings. My grandpappy once told me about something called an Xbox 360 card chat. That from what I've read, if something would get someone in golden age history, the old pod chats, or as they were called at the time, Call of Duty chats. And we'll go into pivot to the next game as we don't have as much time as I'd like, and I want to make sure we can see the whole experience. But yes, the old Call of Duty chats. They so racist and promiscuous people's mothers back in the COD days. Yes. We don't have any surviving copies of those games. However, we do know we do have some audio recordings. They are very encrypted, very staticky, but we can pick out some of the words. Some of the words include many old racial slurs, and actually a few very modern ones that will not be repeated, along with very often, very young-sounding people would say, "I'll fuck your mother," and, well, quite simply, this would seem abhorrent for a modern society to do. You can't, we can't have young children doing that. But our records show that, there's no history of any kind of punishment coming to these people, so we can only assume that some sort of cultural difference is at play here. Everyone would smash the game. I love hate footage of Xbox. Would ironically violate Twitch TOS? Exactly. It violate Twitch TOS. There was we do suspect that because of the lack of repercussive action to these young children, that in the old world, and this is very old world, for most of the artifacts we're looking at 800, 1,000 years. We're looking maybe closer to 1,200 or so. For the Call of Duty or COD lobbies. Now, we suspect that for some reason it was okay to take a mother's name in vain, or if not, they were doing something much more unsavory with each other's mothers. But it was simply acceptable at the time. And again, this is why Golden Age is so interesting, but sometimes not for the weak of heart. I know I've definitely had a couple of situations where I learned something about the old world and go, yikes, that definitely would not fly in modern Tysantopia. The Xbox 360 was one of the devices we've talked about. Keyboard, mouse. This was a console, much like your head chip, except outside the head. But of course, we move on from Electric Man. My grandpappy told me they thought COD would bring back the days of the 80s. Oh yes, the 1980s. When would that have been? That was 1200. 1980s would have been. But sadly, he fell out of a window. Yeah, I believe, if bring back the 80s, yeah, it is pretty hard to bring back the culture of almost 300 years before. Just as, things come and dies. I remember a couple of years ago in Tysantopia, the big trend was giant shoes. But that one fell quickly after the president fell. And he fell out the window and became immortal. I'm glad to see the Destroyer's origins. Destroy the 101st Destroyer. Destroy the 101st origin story is just as great as his name. It can be quite hard. That's when popular, completely fictitious and utterly implausible novel by George Orwell takes place, right? He was so excited he kept jumping out really tall buildings and crying when we found him. I see you guys have a lot of questions. The first one about the book 1984 by George Orwell. I believe that is, I feel like you guys may be under a misnomer. I guess young people these days, you don't have all the social norms yet, but you're pushing the bounds. But it's a lot of people, they'll find 1984, and we're gonna come to the game in a moment, or the artifact in a moment. They'll find 1984 and look at our protection network, and they'll draw some unfair conclusions about the similarity between them. 1984, this is literally 1984, I believe, is one of the old memes. That was about surveillance and control. The protection network is not about surveillance and control. The protection network is about knowledge and prediction. Ah, fuck. My PC is telling me it's ready for Windows 11. Yes, Windows 1100. Windows 1111. Personally, I'm more of a fan of Windows 1109. But yes, I honestly, Spirit, I'd be blown away if you had a PC that ran Windows 11. The closest we've been able to get is Windows Orange, which we suspect is from the merger of two companies, of Apple and Microsoft. Was some of the companies. Windows Orange. Windows 11 is decades before even that purchase, I believe. We're not even confident it exists, Spirit. Where's the audio? There's the audio. So, let's just talk about this artifact, because it is, again, quite a grotesque game. Dude, my grandpa told me about the wonders of Windows 98. My grandpa never heard of one before. Yeah, well, I get it. And again, this is common convention nowadays, but when we're talking old world history, it might be better to be specific than vague. I know common convention is to drop the zero off the 98 and drop the 1 off the Windows 91, drop 981 and drop the 2 off 982, etc. But when we're talking about a possibility of a Windows 11 computer, we need to be specific. Windows 11, nearly impossible. Windows 110 and or through 119, incredibly common. I'm pretty sure that's what my grandpa was using when he was born. Just if we would like to consider this discussion, let us specifics, please, because I don't mean to get uptight about it, but this it's got me excited, and I don't want to be too excited. I don't want to get excited over nothing. And let us talk about. And he was older than several expired peanuts originating from the mines down when the destroyed Ireland district. No, it just says 11. This PC is a hand-me-down from several generations up. Spirit, my friend, I'm sure we need to talk. I would love to discuss your Windows 11 PC. It's quite remarkable to even know if that one of those things exists. Several expired appear from destroyed Ireland district. Oh man, we did have a little Ireland, I believe. I believe it was a couple hundred years ago. We had a little Ireland when Ireland flooded. When Ireland flooded due to this climate changing on water levels, a lot of the refugees found their way to Tysantopia and made their own little culture of Little Ireland. Ironically, not huge drinkers. So, Crit, I would ask you guys please refrain from trying to purchase this PC. I think that if I give me an opportunity to talk to the Tysantopia, exactly. Let us get us in the museum, and we can try to make sure that it is something everyone can enjoy, not just locked up in some room. But Spirit, please, not. I believe we do have. I believe I'll get your number after the tour, and we'll be in touch. We'll see if we can't talk about this. Knowing how those old computers would run would be amazing. It's I'm only able to play these on again a computer that is running. I believe it is. Let me check the version. It's a it's 320. It's a virtual box for a Windows 320. So again, a very old computer. Exactly. Being able to research not only would show us, would not only help us, and reproduction's easy, as you know, Chris. As everyone knows in Placetopia, we have mastered cloning technology many generations ago. It was one of the first things people were trying to get figured out. And we got it. That's why sharing computer programs has become so much easier. Instead of having to reproduce it and carry it between devices, you're able to quite simply just take the computer that has the program on it and make an exact duplicate of it. That is why it's become so much easier to make things nowadays, and that's not the concern for most companies. Making stuff is easy. It's the design that's the challenge. But we need to talk about this, because I feel like this game, it is called Toss the Turtle, is a, oh yes, our technology is fast path that we discovered the key to reproduction of PCs. Well, PCs, of course. We've been able to duplicate non-organic life for a while. There's been, I'm pretty sure, I've been chatting with some of my colleagues at UTT, and there have been some of them that have working theories of of perhaps even a potential way to copy organic life. Of course, it takes forever for any of those things to test, especially with bureaucracy and the network. But if it is true, then the next couple of years of Tysantopia could be very, very interesting. But to know our history, we must know our past. Our past lies here. This game, you may have noticed as we are playing through it a bit, it is incredibly violent. You notice the blood and gore and guts, and this turtle that we are, again, as the game describes it, tossing. We are a bit confused at the museum about what exactly this game is meant to be, as it seems almost far too simplistic to be any kind of simulation, yet almost far too cruel for it to be any kind of representation of an experience people have. My grandpa told me the old reckoning civilizations managed to clone living creatures with limited degree of success. My grandpappy told me about this one. Yeah, I believe, again, old culture technology is limited, and it did not survive well, especially paper records of it. Digital records were also pretty bad due to just how much space they took up. You could have PDFs taking up megabytes. Nowadays, that's simply not too much space. They had, I believe, very limited degrees of success as they were able to make simple single cellular clones of things, and while this is quite revolutionary, the techniques they used were inefficient and cruel at best, and incredibly dangerous at worst, not only for society as a whole, but also for whatever was being cloned. We need something a little bit more ethical, to say the least. These clones they would make back in the day, they were very susceptible to all the old world diseases, like cancer, for example. That took a lot of people in the old world. The Destroyer told you about this one. It symbolized and fulfills the fulfillment of death, and people would sacrifice their bodies for money. Isn't that the Super Mario Bros. Coin sound? Yes, I do believe that is. I'll answer Cole's question first because it's a bit quicker. I want to dig into yours a bit more. Cole, you are absolutely right. That is the old Mario sound, and I know you would know it. Again, you've already shown yourself to be quite knowledgeable about the game. Um, and it was a very common thing in this time. I know you guys may have worked together in the past. Maybe, you know, family trees tend to get a bit intertwined. It's fine. And that game was so cool. I don't know why they released it on 129 different platforms. Yeah, one of the very popular things of the golden age of gaming was a collective understanding that when you made something and put it out on what was the internet, again, not the network, although the internet was a incredibly simple form of the network. That when you put it out there, that you were kind of accepting this social contract that it could be taken and used anywhere, and people could use it in what they made. And the idea behind this was really revolutionary, something unique of, simply that the more stuff that's out there, the more you can create, and the easier it is to. The easier it is to create, the more we as a society can create. I guess, however, we've seen what we all know what that one ends. They want to release Metroid Omega or Zelda Gun of the Patriots or Mother 3 though. Silly Nintendo. Yes, it is a surprise to see that not only Nintendo, even though most of the countries outside Titantopia are struggling, to put it frank, that Nintendo has still found a way to keep their company going and quite profitably. I've always been personally fond of Mother 3. It was a game that I heard of even when I was a young boy. And then again, talking about the meaning of this game, again, Crit, your grandfather's brilliant man. I would have never been able to come up with something as complex as what he did, as what he's done. That, again, there's this ancient idea that, again, it's a very archaic idea that when you are alive, you have a very limited time, and that time has value, and the things you do have value, and you should be compensated for that value. They did this compensation not through what you need, like, you know, again, a modern day, you work, you have a house, and you get food, and you have entertainment, and you get what you need and want. Back in the day, they had what was called a currency or a financial system, which was a relic of the old time that we still, you know, because again, governments being what they are, we still use them in a modern day government for things like taxes and whatnot. But they would sacrifice their bodies. There are stories and books. Do you guys know what books are? Is that too old? Do you guys know what books are? Do I need to explain what books are? Because it's definitely old, but I haven't quite kept up with its popularity. I read them frequently? Okay, I'm glad to see that I don't have to explain everything. Books talking about people working 12 hours a day. That is insane. 7 days a week they would continue on in these books. That is ridiculous. That these kinds of things could happen. That any kind of competent government would let these things happen. 12 hours a day for even someone in Titantopia is quite a bit. You know, we've found a way to make days a bit longer. I believe we're sitting at about 26 hours and 30 minutes. Like 26 hours or so. We tried to settle on 25, but a lot of people wanted a 26. I think we're gonna try to get to 30 hours a day, and then probably stop there, from what I've been hearing. But, yes, for those of you that don't know, I guess I shouldn't assume everyone reads like Spirit. Yes, it is. You take plant fibers, so things like grass and trees, condense them and mulch them up into many thin sheets, and then you would take some sort of material, like a pencil or a pen, and write on it. Then Spirit, I overheard you were chatting with Crit. His name was Albon. I think his last name was Spirit, which is what Albon Spirit. I don't know the name. You know, my some of my profs would probably have my head if they heard that. I'm sure I read some of his work, but it doesn't ring a bell. But yeah, honestly, I'm jealous of the man. I'm jealous of Aldon. Albon. It was I wish I would give just about anything to work with the Destroyer, Destroyer the 111th. Again, honestly, he's an inspiration to not only myself, but I think I speak for everyone at the Museum of Flash Game History when I say that he is an inspiration to everyone here. And if you are liking what you're seeing, Crit, of course, you probably know, but Spirit Cola and anyone else here, if you like what you see here, read some of his work. It is revolutionary and some of the basis of what we've done. But it is but I can't reproduce it here for you. It's not only under copyright of the of himself, not his own copyright, but I don't keep it here in the museum. It's far too precious. Yes, I'm curious. How's that? I will give you a cookie if you know what Grandpa's name is a reference to. Oh, let's see. You said his name is Aldern Spirit. Aldern Spirit. I believe my memory serves. That is Albon. My bad. Albon Spirit. Albon Spirit. Albon Spirit. It's quite simply. I'm not sure. I'm sure his parents had a brilliant idea, but I was never one to be too good at looking into looking at names. I was a bit too focused up with research most of my time. But a scientist never stops learning. What enlighten me, my friend. Your grandpa, who again, if they worked with Destroyer the 111th, must have done some great work. What are they named after? What's their story? As keep this going. And one thing you might notice as I'm talking to you guys as this game is playing, it is repetitive. Repetitive. It is the same thing over and over and over again, and this is what's important. This is what you need to know. If you have to take away one thing from this game, it's that, and again, Crit and your grandfather came up with this. It's the repetitive work-like nature that the old world would use. The reference to a popular character called Soul Eater. Yes, I know a bit of it. I believe that is one of those animated shows. We have some of the films of those. No one is perfect, but I'll out myself a bit here. I never even though I'm pretty sure I took some history of televised of old world television. The animated stuff and cartoons were never my speciality. It was always the games that had my most interested ever since I played Sklango Unlimited as a young child. It was one of my absolute just favorite games, and it just got me so interested. So I remember in the game there's this moment where one of the characters they mentioned that they're sick and tired of how things were, and that they want things to change. And I found that very inspirational. And I found that inspirational. And the way she did that, it was interesting. She didn't use violence, of course not. She didn't use violence, but she used knowledge. She did research into how and why the old ways were the way they were, and instead of radically changing them, they improved them to make them modern and interesting. That's where my interest came from. That's why I really think, and again, this is my opinion here, I think it is vital that we look at these old games, especially from the Golden Age, because if we do not, we cannot understand our history. And as one of my professors would say, those that do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. And we're not going to be doing that anytime soon. We can't afford to do that anytime soon. Many parents were notes. My parents, I remember, they were my great-grandparents. My great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddad was also quite a nerd. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same number of greats as Mr. the Destroyer. Sadly, I don't have any relatives near that old, but I don't have any relatives that old, however. But I know my parents, they were quite tech people, I remember. Must have been maybe 200 or so years ago. They told me a story of when they were quite young, I think, when my dad was when it was about 18 and when my mom was maybe like mid-20s or so. Maybe it was 19 and like 22 or so. How they met was actually that they were both, at the time again, very poor university students. Because, we do help a lot, university. It's not that you don't have the money to attend it, but it's very draining physically. And so, being unable to work for other more important commodities, they actually decided to build their own headships. Now, as much as I would love to say they built something revolutionary, from what they've told me, what they ended up building was just barely better than a quantum computer. Not very impressive at all, but it was they built it together, and that's how they met, my grandparents. Was that they built a very shitty a headship. It didn't work well. It didn't get the job done, but that's not what always matters at the end of the day. Sometimes there's something a little bit more important than just the end product, but the journey that also gets you there. 3, 4. Perfect. Now, I think at this point the real message has begun to come across of how repetitive the daily life seemed to have been for these old world people. Like, nothing has changed, yet we're still going. And there's this weird, almost human part that you watching me able to understand, but myself when I play these artifacts, there's almost an enjoyment in it, seeing the numbers go up. I think it's a very old genetic development to probably help with either, help the old world people with computation. But you gotta look at it objectively. We're doing the same thing over and over again. And to what end? To do more money, to do the same thing again. It paints a grim picture of what the old world was like. Personally, I'll say I'm very happy that Tysantopia has moved away from the financial currency system into a more much more needs and wants system. He left us not long ago after my great grandpappy was born. His dad left him for a lady named Colin Allen Thea. Oh, it's you hate to see that kind of thing happen to people when parents leaving them, but sometimes, and it's not for the best, but sometimes that's how it tends to happen. I know one of my I remember that I actually heard that there was this idea back in the old world where if you had married someone, you guys know what marriage is, whether Colin Allen Thea Sproit. There was this idea in the old world that if you married someone, that you had to stay with them forever. And again, keep in mind that unlike now in modern days where marriage is usually between a couple of people, an old world marriage was, in all likelihood, between 2 people. You would pick one person to spend your life with. And we moved marriage not long after the network took over. Yes, marriage in the very traditional sense we've got rid of. It's an exclusivity contract of sorts that's legally binding. You're on the right track. So in a modern day marriage, we give our vow to the network, but the network does keep track of the marriages as well and give them to the president if he needs to do policies and whatnot. I do remember, with a modern marriage, if you decide at a moment that you and whomever you're with or whomsoever you're with, again, back then it was one person. Nowadays you sometimes have a couple of parents, a couple of dads, a couple of moms, a couple of non-binary parents as well. You can simply talk to them, and you can get all the legal paperwork done in, not instantly, but a couple of milliseconds. Which again, well, and back in the day, there would be situations where, if you need to take a phone call, please just step out of the atrium, just as not to disrupt the other viewers. But if you were to be discontent with the marriage, you would have to go through a very lengthy and very expensive legal process to get a divorce. And for many people of the time, that process was simply unaffordable, especially with the currency system. And so people would end up in these terrible marriages where no one was happy. Again, you have to keep in mind when we talk about this, though, it's an old world. They have different standards and cultures. My grandpappy has just escaped the mental aside. Oh, Jesus. Give me a moment. I'm going to. I need to take a call. Just real quick. Give me a second. Just mute this. Hello? Yeah. It's me, Quincy. Yeah, I'm just doing a tour right now. Hey, this is actually really important. Do you remember what? Do you remember the destroyer of the 111? Yeah. Yeah. Guy, the theory about the tossed turtle and the old world job. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. He's escaped. I know. You're upset. I don't know what happened. I've just been told. I'm in the middle of something right now. Once I'm done, I'm gonna call you right away. I'm gonna figure this out, okay? If anyone sees him, make sure no one engages with them and no one interacts with them. We don't really know what he will do. And yeah, and try to figure out where you think he's gonna go. Yeah. No, I won't end it sooner. I'm a man of dignity. I'm not gonna end the tour just because someone escaped. Yeah, go fucking fix it. Okay, got it. I'll work the weekend. Bye. Sorry about that. I had to place a quick call. One of my co-workers just wanted to ask me about my day. Just wanted to ask me about my day. Don't let them kill. No. I'm sure whoever's looking for your grandpappy, and again, he's one of the greatest minds. No matter how mentally unfit he is, they quite simply wouldn't do that, especially not soon. It's uncouth, to say the least. He'll be, I can guarantee it that hypothetically, if I had anything to do with the hunt for Destroyer, the 111th, I would give you my personal guarantee he will be alive and well. Ironic that he escapes during the game where he made one of his biggest theses, though. Either way, though, again, we have many artifacts to go through today, and never enough time. We have to move on from this, as enjoyable as it may be. Again, I open the floor to the people about this game. You can see just how soul-sucking it was. The one thing you'll notice that's not always apparently obvious the first time you look at this artifact, that notice how every single run ends in gruesome violence. Now I think that speaks volumes. Personally, it's one of my working theories that this says about the commerce system that I've kind of been thinking about as we've been going through. But yes, I open the floor to you. Anyone, any questions about this game or what entertainment or what purpose it served? Crit, this is bad, man. I have to take my leave. Crit, I understand your hesitance to stay here, and I cannot force you. You know, it's a free tour. You're coming along. I cannot force you to stay. But again, I assure you, your grandpappy will be fine. I assure you. Don't look for him. But if you must go, you must go. It's I hate to see it though. It's today is opening day of the museum as we're walking towards the next set of next artifact. It's opening day in the museum, and again, I have to look for him. Crit Destroyer? Go to the university. Go to the history building. Go to university. Go to history building. Third floor. Go to the closet. And what you're gonna do is there's gonna be a stain on the wall that kind of looks like cum. You're gonna take a bottle. You're gonna take the blue bottle and wipe that off. Okay. That's all I can say. Speaking of soul sucking, have you managed to scientifically verify the existence of souls or lack thereof? It was something that old people would worry about endlessly. Well, I think I think scientifically. Well, first I want to say this: Crit, be careful. Don't do anything dumb. I want to see you again. Understood? I want to see you again. And also, it's the opening day of the museum. We're really trying to engage people with it. There's been some the history and archaeology board. They want to make sure that we are getting the word out there. So, as much as I don't like doing it, I have to do this. To those of you watching, whether you had known about this event for a long time in advance or you've walked in the front doors, hey, thank you, and I hope you continue enjoying the archaeology, the museum, and I want to say that if you do like, you can do what is called following. We are currently working towards having our followers at the museum to actually be able to accept donations. But at this point, following is the best thing you can do. And you can join our museum discussion board, among other things. It's a bit of older tech, but any modern device should be able to run it. It is called a Discord. In the chat located to my right and your right as well, if you type !Discord, or let me rephrase, if you think !Discord and think to send it, then you'll see a link to this board. But with that out of the way, let us continue to what is next. We were discussing in Toss the Turtle that it is this idea of commerce and trade. Again, it's seeming like these games, these ideas, very fundamental to the old world folk about getting money and trading it for goods and services. And this artifact all but confirms it. This is called Lemonade Stand. We found it, well, we didn't, this is a recreation of Lemonade Stand. The original was actually found carved into stone. How the game works in its mechanics. This is a electronic and digital recreation with what we expect the technology of the time to look like. And the goal is quite simple. we just run a lemonade stand with the simple idea, a fundamental idea of we need to make lemonade, and we have to set the prices for it. So if we could do something like this, maybe again, I know currency is it can be very complex. There's many high level university classes talking about it, but again, this currency, think of it like, how to describe it? Think of this currency like when you borrow something from a friend. It's just a permanent borrow. I will give you something. It's like an IOU, I think is a much better way to put it. I will give you the ability to buy something else if you give me that. That's the basic idea. So we'll. So this is the idea of talking about that trade.
Cool,
You can
blimey.
see
Great price.
great price. Make enough lemonade to meet demand, but not too much you lose money.
It's
Again.
perfect weather for lemonade.
Whoa, great price. I'll take 2 cups, dude.
Yeah, you can hear. The old world, they had mastered the technology of voice acting, something which at the time, which again for the time was revolutionary. Until we had found the design for this game, we did not expect them to have the ability to do this kind of voice acting. One of the
Whoa, great price. I'll take 2 cups.
One of the
dude.
working theories for this game is that it was a much like Bubble Tanks. It was a sort of simulation and or some sort of simulation or way for people to
No, thank you. I'm too cold for lemonade today.
some sort of
Cool,
simulation
blimey.
that people would use
Great
to
price.
simulate this lemonade stand, a popular drink when it was hot. Popular drink when it was hot.
No, thank you. I'm
I'm
too
done.
cold.
Popular drink. I'm not an economist, to say the least. I'm a history curator, not a math guy. You ran out of money. Ooh, again, you can see where my knowledge lies. It's not in working a business. It's in something much more simple. It was a kind of composition theory about this old world, and guys, I hope you people are beginning to understand that about what the golden age is, what made it special. It wasn't just that there was a lot of games. There were a lot of games, but that's not what made it special. What made it special
The weather's a bit cold for
what
lemonade.
made it special
Cool, blimey.
was
Great price.
poor blimey, great price. What made the game special was the fact that no matter that there was so many and that people could do whatever they want. It was the Wild West where no idea was too dumb. That's what made it the golden age. That's what I loved about the golden age of the old world games. Is that people could make
Whoa, great
anything.
price. I'll take 2 cups, dude.
And no matter what, all that stopped them was themselves, not a government, not some list of yeses and nos, not social convention even. Just
It's
what they
perfect
wanted to
weather
make.
for lemonade.
Whoa,
And that's
great price. I'll take
what
2
made
cups,
the
dude.
golden age golden. The lack of intervention, the ability to do anything. I hope you guys are starting to understand that. Let us be frank, this as a game is a little lacking, you may say. But that does not mean it's not important. just because it's a bad game does not mean it's not important. Grandpa told me that the economy was such an important concept that many languages use a similar word for it. Economy has English, French. Oh, I haven't done old world languages in a long time. Economy, economia, even had econo. I don't know Greek. Germany was always party pooper. Called it Wischdorf or something. Why was old Germany so at odds with the rest of the old world? It's complicated. It depends how old we're talking. If we're talking if we're talking before the 1900s, it's a cultural difference. If we're talking after the 1900s, it's a result of a what at the time was the largest war in history. At this point, it's not. It's definitely wouldn't call it the largest war in history, but
The
it's
weather's a
definitely
bit
not.
cold for lemonade.
Definitely not perfect. But again, it's the old world people had such an interesting way of doing things, and it's interesting to discuss. Modern entertainment. It has all values in Tysantopia of looking out for each other and protecting each other and doing the right thing. And violence, we don't want violence, although sometimes it is necessary. 99 times out of 10, we try to prevent violence. So much of old world culture is rooted in this idea that the solution to a problem is violence. If you ever get a chance to play, I believe it is, which one came out 400 years. I think you could probably still find a copy of you can probably still find a copy of Dinga's Quest. It is it's not an old world game, but it does capture that idea of being rooted in violence, where the solution to all your problems is combat. Again, it shows the cultural difference. 99 times out of 100. It's just a fun little saying I use sometimes. I've a couple of other my colleagues will use 99 times out of 10. Oh, I'm just gonna make lemonade.
The weather's a bit cold for lemonade.
Whoa, great.
But yes, it's
No, thank you. I'm too cold
Tyson.
for
A little
lemonade.
bit of just a Tysantopia saying. 10 thirsty teams in town today. We go fucking huge.
It's perfect weather for lemonade.
Whoa, great price. I'll take 2 cups, dude.
Now look at this. A job well done. Again, a simple game. That's what made the golden age good. The simplicity is what I want you guys to understand. And again, that's what this game shows, and that's why this game is important to the museum. Because of its simplicity. But I understand, you aren't able to interact with it. It can be a bit boring to watch. So they're going to be moving on quite quickly here. The next game on our list is, yes, it is it's actually a very vital game as well. We've talked about, I believe, with Bubble Tanks and Electric Man, the technology of the old world. But I feel there is no game that more easily demonstrates not only the old world's technology, but also its view on the animals around it than what we are playing next. It is a fairly small game, much like Toss the Turtle in some ways, called Learn to Fly. Let's make sure we got it all set up properly. Now, what I want you guys to focus on when we're playing this is 2 things. The first, notice the technology the penguin has access to. We can deduce, since old world people made this game, that this was at least similar to the technology they had for propulsion. And on and on a similar front, I want you to notice not just that, but also I want you to also notice the I want you to also notice the penguin and how it is helpless. It is not the penguin that flies. It is the machine that flies around it. This is going to be vital. The goal of this old world game is very, very simple. Again, like Toss the Turtle, is to go distance. To go far away. Now, you might notice the first jump can't do too much. Penguins, again, I don't know if you guys know what penguins are. They are a very old animal that's a very distant ancestor of the peng shark by name. Basically, think a peng shark with a much smaller body and tended to be on land more. That is kind of what you're thinking of with a penguin. And now, this is what we want to talk about. Research funds. Note we did almost nothing. And we do not have anywhere near enough money to make any sufficient progress to do anything interesting. This talks about the technology of the time. How research at the time was near impossible to get going because no one trusted it and no one gave it the money and opportunity it deserved. There was some theories that this, along with the Black Plague, is what led to the Bronze Age of entertainment and the death of many, many people. But either way, though, we continue. We persist. Even though we aren't able to fund our wildest dreams yet, we don't stop. I think this game, this artifact has a very different outlook on this repetitive nature of work, unlike Toss the Turtle. Where Toss the Turtle was about the struggle and violence of work and all you had to give up. This one talks about something different, something unique. Talks about the perseverance of the old world and how they don't stop. That's one thing that I do remember reading a lot about. People in the old world were stubborn as bricks. For better or for worse, usually for worse. It was this stubbornness that even got them close to making basic biological clones. It was this stubbornness that dropped nukes. The old world is not the best place, but we know for certain that they were stubborn. But I digress. And the game, again, itself simplistic. Simple in its design, yet its message is blindingly obvious. And now you notice something. Now and only now that we have gotten more money, that we've had to persevere, could we afford things to make more money. This ended up being a very common thing. An idea of that you have to spend money to make money. This idea was so important even that there were many books written with it as a fundamental concept. Again, a very old world idea, having about spending money and making money. Very old world, but for the time, it doesn't seem inaccurate. Again, Spirit, you're still here. I mean, anyone else, if you've heard from me, your parents or grandparents about the old world, they may remember their grandparents talking about currency and money. As you all know, the change to a more needs and wants thing was only recent. Doesn't that kind of concept simply lead to increasing wealth inequality over time as those with more make more than those who don't? That seems to be the logical conclusion, and again, I know gotta keep this in mind, Spirit. You have to keep this in mind when we are discussing. These people are very underdeveloped. They do not have the brain power we have. We are biologically much, much smarter. We don't even know if they have the ability of forethought, to be quite frank. But, you are right, and there are books. Or not, I wouldn't say books, there are books, yes, but there's actually even a few games that talk about this idea. But, it doesn't seems to fall on deaf ears a lot of the time. And you know, it's only recently we changed over to a more a needs-want kind of thing. You know, once the president, once Tyson became the president, then he you know, changed things up to how he saw fit. And you know, it's looking, you know, we can't see it's only been, you know, I think has it only been 20 years already? He's been in charge for only 20 years, but only been in charge for 20 years, but he seems to be doing a good job. I believe I heard one of the museum fire alarms go off. Just one moment. And please stay here. Do not touch the artifacts. I will be right back. I need to make sure nothing is on fire. Converse amongst yourself about the old world and how interesting these artifacts are. I will be just one moment. I have great news, everyone. The museum is not burning down. Yes, you know, while we have a moment, I guess this is a natural resting point. I never asked at the start of the tour, I was just too excited. How is everyone doing today? It's a, you know, it's a nice day in Tysantopia, it always is. You know, sometimes it gets a bit colder, but that's usually just the weather machine running up, being a bit low on volts. But yeah, I didn't ask. Spirit yourself as well. Don't leave yourself out of the equation, my friend. How are you doing today? You seem to be very excited for the tour as well. I know. I know there's been a bit of a kerfuffle, kerfuffle recently, but it was it's been quite enjoyable, nevertheless. And now, this is an important part now that we've gotten here. Note this. The rocket. The fact that this exists tells us something. And everyone, I want you to be paying very close attention to this. The fact that this exists tells us something vital about the old world culture. And it tells us that the old world, while it's commonly believed that the old world used mostly cars and small explosions for their travel, that this existing shows an idea that they used not engines but combustion. Now, of course, we can't confirm this. All vehicles have been lost over the years, but this idea could be revolutionary if it gets a bit more traction. Because, well, quite simply, instead of being stuck to the ground like most people would think, it would show us that the old world, they were able to get off the ground, and quite well at that. Although, to be fair, we do know they did get into space. The large amount of debris in space is a dead giveaway of that, for certain. You know, it genuinely is an issue. You know, if any of you have seen a rocket launch recently, that that we always have to spend time figuring out not just when's the best time to launch to get to our destination, but also when's the best time to launch to hit as few things as possible. Again, that can take quite a lot of work to get all that math done. That math is not easy, especially with the amount of debris. But, at least from Tysantopia, you can't see it. So, you can't, it's not all bad, eh? Either way, though, this is a, the meaning of this game is obvious. You take a look at it, and you can tell what's all going on. It's about perseverance, and just kind of showing about the old world. Now, I want to ask you people, just the old world, what is your guys' connotations of it? When I say the old world, or old world people, what do you guys think of? Do you think of old Victorian style people, or people using steampunk, or using steam? I feel like this would help give me some context to help you learn even better about the old world cultures. My view of the old world is shaped by these, but I'm curious, especially chatting with much younger folk than myself, about what shapes your understanding of the old world. I know I've chatted with a couple of colleagues, a couple of undergraduate students, that the old world for them is not a place. They don't really consider it real. Of course it's real. They don't really consider it a place, though. It seems almost fictitious, like something you play in Dungeons and Dragons 23rd edition. So I'm curious what you guys' connotations are, because again, the existence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt it was real. It was very real, in fact. Very, very real. And the amount of things that came from this golden age, I really think that if we discover more of their artifacts, we should be able to learn quite a bit, not only from them, but also learn quite a bit in how we make our entertainment. Taking the old world knowledge from this golden age and applying it to, and putting a spin on it using that Placentopian mindset. Now, and we're just gonna continue forth. And this is gonna, for me, the old world is definitely a borderline fictitious long lost time. I made a Dungeons and Dragons 23 setting based on it. Yeah, I know I've definitely played my fair share of 23rd edition campaigns when I had more spare time in an old world-esque setting. I always end up playing with some of my buddies, and they'll call me out for. I'll call them out for like, we'll be playing, and one of the casters someone will do something, and the DM will be like, yeah, you see, this is how the old world works. And sometimes I just can't help myself. When I have to go, well, actually, you see, the old world was like this, and this. It's it's got me a bit of reputation with my friends, that's for certain. But hey, they still invite me to D&D night. Wait. D&D night tonight? Today's Friday. Check my phone. No unread messages. Weird. They didn't shoot me a reminder. They probably canceled it and just forgot to tell me. It's all good. It happens. It's so hard to plan D&D with how busy everyone is. 26 hours simply isn't enough time in a day. But even though it may sound fictitious and Victorian to the people watching, I assure you, the old world is very real and it's full of very real people. And these people, well, again, not like us, they had culture, they had art and entertainment. And that is what is so interesting about it. But again, it is always a little upsetting, might be how to put it, when you do old world research and you just find out just how violent they are. I find it's quite a flexible for setting design. It was so fantastical that you could run a bog standard adventure, but its harsher realities lend itself to psychological horror quite well. Yes, I tended to be a whenever I played Dungeons and Dragons, I tended to play a wizard. You know, I like thinking, he likes thinking. It just makes sense. It just makes sense to me. And yeah, exactly. It was very gritty, you know, the gritty realism rules in 23rd edition. The gritty realism rules in 23rd edition, some would say it's lacking. I'd be inclined to agree. But in the old world setting, there was never enough of it. And I know there was a couple of times when I think on a slight tangent, I know this isn't related to the old world history. Toupee, welcome back. I didn't even see you had to leave. We were just chatting about Dungeons and Dragons 23rd edition. And you know, on a more broad sense, discussing the importance of the golden age of Flash video games in the old world. But welcome back as well. I found when I was DMing for D&D 23rd edition, that my players would complain to me that it was too unrealistic with how violent it was. That people would so quickly resort to swords instead of trying to talk things out. And you know, as the DM, I tried to run something realistic. And I told them this was how it was, and then they didn't want to play with me anymore. But point is, exactly. I think if I were able to better remove myself from the game, then the old world would be an amazing setting. The tongue is mightier than the sword, exactly. The tongue pen, headship is much mightier than the sword. Also, considering most people don't know how to, considering I don't think anyone knows how to make a sword anymore, definitely mightier. Ah, yes. That's what. Toupee, you caught me in a little bit of a loop there. I think the saying is the pen that's my in score, which is why I exclusively play wizards. Yes. That's been a common thing for me. Swords cut things, pens copy down. Fireball, yes! Oh, I haven't heard the name Fireball in a long time. God, when in my undergraduate class, I was talking with some friends, and I was showing them, I'd gotten into older editions, and I showed them, I think I had a version of, I think it was 18th edition? 18th or 17th edition? I think it was 17th edition. 18th edition had very weird rules. It was 17th edition. I showed them 17th edition. And I'd been doing old world culture, so I kind of knew what the old world was like. And when they saw how focused it was, all the class stuff on combat, they were like, they looked at me and said, Quincy, we don't want to fucking do any of this shit. We want to talk and solve our problems. We don't want to fight people. I'm like, but that's not accurate. But I get it. It's not meant to be accurate. It's definitely D&D's gotten more culturally acceptable over time, to say the least. Pens are trash. Toupee. I think, generally speaking, on a general sense, absolutely. I'm a pencil guy. I make mistakes all the time. Believe you me, I wrote down the wrong starting time for this tour. If with a pen you can't erase them, and that just doesn't work for me. But in the more philosophical sense, I think history has shown quite clearly that the pen is mightier than the sword. But on a practical sense, yes, they can go fuck themselves. Pardon my language. I guess I didn't clear if people were good with swearing. You have beef with pens? Toupee, please. the floor is yours. We do need, this game is pretty much, its meaning and symbolism in the old world is pretty much fully expunged. Let's move forth to the next game. And as we do so, Toupee, pig pens, cow pens, pen pens. Huh, I see what you did there. A little bit of wordplay. Open it all up. We all open it all up. We all live free. A little bit of wordplay there, I see. Yes, lots of the, lots of the old world ways. In the defense of swords, using one to carve a message in an enemy is a lesson that is not soon forgotten. That is, Spirit, that is incredibly macabre, and I get what we've been talking about, semi-serious issues, but a bit of tact, please. Like, it's not just, you guys get what I mean? Spirit, you get what I mean? Again, a bit of tact. And yes, luckily, I think for everyone, since no one's been able to make swords for a good while now, that we've never had to deal with such a strong message, might be how to put it, to say the least. Let's see, what was next on our viewing list? Ah, yes. My tool of choice is permanent marker. Much less permanent. I like that. And it gets the message across. Now, see, now we're thinking. A permanent marker, it gets the same thing done as a sword in Spirit's very direct example, might be a way to put it. But it is much less violent, and it gets the same message across. And again, why violence? Now, worse in some ways, it is, I know the name is a misnomer, it's not actually permanent, but, I think permanency is something that people crave much more than they actually think they want. Less hospital treatment and possibly much more degradation. Yes, the medical... Degradation is the fun part. I think we should pivot. I think it's time to talk about something a little more cool for all ages. Now, this artifact I actually haven't had a chance to look at myself. This came in just this morning, and so you guys are all here for the first showing of what might I introduce you to the artifact. Again, this one, it was actually this artifact, it was, what is this? This artifact, it was an interesting one to find, but definitely one that, now that we have it, is an absolute pleasure to be working with. And that, of course, is Toast of War. Called Toast of War. Now, again, I don't know what this is, so together we'll be learning, and let's have some fun, shall we? Let us, as a group, what does this mean? Okay, let us walk through this. Hey, Grandpa. Hey, Grandpa, can you tell me that story now? What? I said you can tell me the story you're gonna tell me. What? The story you were gonna tell me. What? The story. Ah, yes, the story about me as a lone warrior. And what I said about violence being... Oh shit, things are happening. How do I... Ouch. Remember what I said about these games being based on violence? Because of the old world cultures? Now this is what I mean. Toast of War, and this is about a soldier. I don't know how this works. Can I do anything? Oh, I can tag. Okay. Okay, so of course, again, old world games is very common to have some kind of attack be able to use. But though, what? what is this? These large butter creatures. Was this something the old world had to face? Like, it seems completely unnatural, but I've definitely heard of, some of the old world technology can sound fictitious without having the evidence to back it up. Did the butter monsters in the old world, and then that begs a lot of questions of what happened to it, or what happened to them. Should have checked the controls. This artifact came in and it was just the program. It didn't come with any controls or anything. It's just I've been working with these artifacts a while. I can usually pick up pretty quickly what these controls are meant to be. There's some old conventions for a keyboard game. It was literally on the menu. Well, again, I'm not above submitting I make mistakes. Sometimes I'll admit, I get a bit too focused on the tour itself and not the actual artifacts when I'm here. But you know, it's especially opening day of the museum. I'm excited that people are coming out to the museum, and I hope people keep coming out as well. Just cause it's just so exciting, The old world history, especially its entertainment, has been so valuable to me and so important to me that I'm so glad there are people that are also interested in these things. And now, again, let us talk about this. The old world has their ways. The ways of violence. Violence and death. Now what is this bread chainsaw? This breadette? This is... My goodness, this is incredibly violent. Jesus. It's not the worst, but it's still not enjoyable. Put it all down. My God. It makes you wonder. Oh yes, this is something that was very, very common in old world games. This idea of a boss fight, where you'd have this large creature you were trying to beat. How do I? What is? This is insane. I don't get what this game is even meant to be. It just seems so barbaric, even for the old world. Like, these butter creatures, they're just, not only are they so just incredibly violent, but also like they have such a sorry to be macabre, but such a bloody death. I can't. It really is just feels very off. How about everyone else? As we are going through this demonstration, what do you guys think of this old world game? Like, what do you think? What do you guys think this could potentially mean for the history of the old world? Man, it is brutally difficult as well, might I say. My goodness. What were these? Is this what these bread monsters were like back then? These butter beasts? Because, my goodness, if this existed in the old world, well, I'm surprised the old world even made it to the Black Plague. This seems seems so much more threatening, at least as it's being depicted. All humans seem to have a habit of ascribing consciousness to inanimate objects that do not possess it. Yes, I have seen this a couple times before. Usually not in video games though. There was we found off the coast a rock. There was this smooth rock that had a face in it, like a face chiseled into it. And the fact that it was chiseled into the rock already tells us it's old world, because that kind of weaponry doesn't exist. So what that tells us is that they wanted to make this rock thing alive in some sense. Now, why you'd want to make a rock alive is one thing, but it begs the question, a very important question. Did they think rocks were alive? Because if so, that raises a lot of questions. There were many examples of times where in the old world they would use rocks. They would use rocks as a building material. Yet also these rocks have possession. It was honestly a baffling idea. But perhaps you might be onto something, Spirit. Things like intent and malice would be ascribed to things like toast, tables, or even forces of nature? Grandpa told me that all humans weren't really conscious, but ascribed this property to themselves and believed they were. It's very interesting as well. It was even forces of nature. It's been such a long time. Again, just because of the general how we do, that I've even considered the forces of nature as something you could ascribe this consciousness to. There was and usually the weather machines take care of the weather to make sure it is acceptable and works in all of Tysantopia. But, you know, I could see it now that the old world could definitely inscribe like some sort of like malice to the sun when the sun came out, the bright light hurting their eyes or something like that. That's definitely like completely within reasonability, I think, for them. You know what, you guys, let's just be honest. I'm gonna be honest with everyone. This museum expedition has been much more enlightening, not just hopefully for you guys as well, but also for myself, because I've simply, you know, I've never had such an opportunity to chat with quite the group of people, and it has been eye-opening. Again, I said it earlier, and I believe this to be hard and true. People are a product of their culture, and art is a product of their people. By looking at the art, we can understand the people, and by looking at the people, we can understand the culture. Oh, Jesus! My goodness, I haven't seen... Is that a road sign? My goodness, I haven't seen a road sign icon I haven't seen a road sign icon in a while now. It's all the cars usually take care of the roads. How about you? Hello there. A choice of not violence, perhaps? In an old world game, I'd call it unlikely. Yeah. They never learned, the old world people. They never learned that violence wasn't always the solution. What is this? What is this? Some sort of small blob?
Hey, it is a good day to die. Hey, for ire.
What is...
It is a good day to die.
What is that? Maybe some kind of Easter egg? That is in one of these artifacts, video game artifacts. An Easter egg is something that is not intentionally, that is not obvious to the viewer that you have to go out of your way to find. I suspect it's possible that that is what we just encountered there. These are added, usually added in order to give a reward to exploration in the games and a sense of accomplishment. But that was not always the case. Sometimes it was. Even in the old world, it was used for recognition. Some very old world games, they would. My goodness, this. Some old world games, they would be developed by not teams but single people, right? I know that's a hard concept nowadays, but believe me, developed by a single person. And these games, developed by a single person, they're still owned by companies. Again, companies, think of a company like a government, except a government's goal is to help people and increase the quality of life. A company's goal is to increase profits and also have profits and increase quality of life. A nuanced difference, but a difference nonetheless. My goodness. You can see here, seems to be made by one Sina and Reza Inman. Sina and Reza. I wonder who Sina and Reza was. Is that the game? Seems like it. Seems this game, in its restored state, is a little jank, but I think this game is a perfect example of the violence the old world had, and just how much you kind of have to be not understanding, but aware of that violence when you start digging into the old world. Any questions about what was this called? War of Toast, I believe. Before we move on. As I suspect, we are beginning to run to the end of our list of games, of artifacts to go through. There's a few more we will be showing today, and then our tour will conclude. I'm going to make sure we get these done in a timely manner. So, if there is no questions, we'll continue. The next game, I think. The next game I would like to show you guys is a very different style of game from what we've seen so far. While most games we've been playing, they are driven by violence, and the goal is combat, and it is defeating or killing something. This game, or at least that's its gameplay, this game we're about to play is very different than that. This is a platformer if any of you do play video games. We'll be looking at an old world game called Fancy Pants Adventures World 1. Now, the fact that it's titled World 1, we believe implies there's a World 2 at least, but we simply do not know where it is. We know it exists somewhere. In fact, it says, brand new adventure, World 1 and 2. It must exist, but we have not found it yet. And we're still looking to this day to find World 2 of Fancy Pants. But until that day comes, we can show you the first one, or at least give you a taste of what this is like. And look, Armor Games. Back in Bubble Tank, we talked about it earlier. We talked about it now as well. Again, since this shares a developer with the Armor Games' Bubble Tank, and our current theory is that Bubble Tanks is some sort of simulation of military, it only logical then to assume that this game is also some sort of combat or military operations. Now, unless the radiation is a lot more effective than we thought, we know spiders were not the size of people. So, we suspect this game has some creative liberties to it. But this combat simulation, it's what makes it so different from Bubble Tank is in Bubble Tank the gameplay. The core gameplay was the fighting. That is what the gameplay. That was the satisfaction that came from it. Now you'll look at this. The core gameplay comes not from fighting, but from maneuvering. Very different idea that, well, quite simply, is very, very rare to see. And you can see another one of these Easter eggs, a collectible. You can already. I hope you all are able to just tell how different this is from the other old world games, because, well, it clearly is. And the movement is something impeccable, you know. Even a lot of games, you know, I've played a lot of games on a keyboard. Again, as a reminder in case you've forgotten. Because again, you don't see keyboards anymore. Many buttons, all labeled. It is definitely, out of the Artifact games I've had the honor of playing, it has to easily be one of the best ones to move around in. But the old world is the old world, and the old world cannot escape its way. This game does still have some form of violence, which, again, better than some of the games we've seen, like Toss the Turtle, for example. But it's not the focus. That's what I really want the takeaway to be here. That this was a game in Artifact developed as a simulation that focused as some sort of simulation that didn't focus on combat, but instead focused on movement or getting places. Now, well, what do we have here? You found the wall jump power. I was saving for later. I'm gonna let you preview that feature. Now, is there? Alright, this game on. I should tell you how to use it. Run into a wall and jump. Exactly. And you can see this was a very common technique where developers would tease other games that would come out that they were working on in order to get more people to play them. This game, I suspect, was to get the whatever military this game was built for more interested in buying whatever game came next. But as this is a simulation, we have to ask a question. You know, I'll ask the question to you out there. What do you guys think this is a simulation of? There's no wrong answers. This is it's a social science. We don't have a concrete answer. There's current working theories, but again, no concrete answer. But I'm curious, as people that consume entertainment, what do you think this could be a simulation of? And with what you know of the old world so far, I suspect you might be quite surprised with what the current accepted theory is. There was I will say it was quite contentious when it came out, the current theory, but there was a certain there's a certain understanding that even though it was contentious, that it was in all likelihood right. The theory that came out was that this is some sort of simulation. It appears to be a representation of anxiety experienced by many when going out shopping. Interesting. I've never heard a take quite like that. Spirit, you've had, throughout this entire tour, you've had some very, very intricate ideas of what these games mean. I think I would like to ask, would you care to elaborate on that all? Either mentioning the gameplay you've seen so far, the enemies, or the style, because you guys don't need to get into old world history, but if you ever try to derive meaning from something, talking about where you get that meaning from is always a very useful way to help help convince people. When going out shopping, I think there is something to that theory, though. I'd love to elaborate, but Spirit, I hate giving away what I'm thinking, just all the answers. I want to encourage self-thought and reflection. There is but I do suspect that the fact that the spiders look the way they are venturing out into a strange and unfamiliar place and contending with seemingly dangerous and terrifying hazards to get some ice cream, which is commonly obtained from a grocery store. You know, actually, I think I have a little bit more to add to your theory. And in a old world grocery store, again, in a modern one, they are more than big enough to support the population and those that shop. In old world grocery stores, they were very small, to be honest. And people would be crammed together in, quite simply put, unethical amounts. And so this movement, maybe this focus on movement, one could say, it is describing the moving between people and how complex and how difficult it is. Now, I think I very much enjoy that theory. I think it's a very good take. However, and again, I'm not saying it's wrong. Another theory, and the currently accepted one, is that this is a theory, this is a game that represents some sort of diplomacy, as some sort of diplomacy or some sort of way to fight violence. As I cannot state enough, the old world incredibly violent. I cannot state that enough. The old world was a very, very violent place. And this is a game that perhaps is talking about what it would be like to be some sort of scout or a diplomat in the old world. We haven't seen it, and we may not get to, but as Spirit mentioned, there is a ice cream and a bunny that stole it. That is the main plot of this game, a very simple plot if I've seen one. But, what is this? What is this? We have never found this. This game has been in our archives for probably 3 years. What is? Some sort of teleportation bouncing room. Yes, I will. Spirit, I will admit, as you're watching this demonstration, you can probably tell this game is, again, not the best, not up to the standards of most games today, but it is it definitely gets its message across, which is, again, theory is that since the developers, Armor Games, maker of Bubble Tanks, that this is like what it's like to be like a diplomat. The bunny and ice cream representing some sort of foreign enemy who is obsessed with violence. The message being something to the effect of, the message being something like, you know, how even with violence you can face it with peace, although you can't rely only on peace most of the time. Was that the Super Smash Bros. Trophy obtained sound cue? Ah, very clever, Spirit. I'm glad to hear you recognize that. Yes, that is again a very common idea. Again, for those of you joining us as well, it's a very common thing in the golden age of video games, where it wasn't when you put out a game of any sort, it was assumed that when you put the game out, that everything in the game, from sound to design to characters, could be used by anyone. And honestly, in some sense, that's what made the golden age golden, is that making a game wasn't impossible. It was a collaborative effort, not just between companies at the time, but also societies. And so yes, that is a Smash Bros. Sound effect from an old game. And I think kind of to talk about it, this game shows something very, very important when we're discussing the old world. And that's this. When let's get some background music. That even in the old world, a world so filled with violence and anger and people harming others, there were some people that were quite advanced for the time, and they saw this violence and anger and said, we can do better. And this is proof of that. And so the old world, it's not all violence, it's quite a bit of violence, but it's not all violence. And, well, there was definitely some people that saw violence as something a bit, that saw violence as something that should be avoided, much like we do today. But you have to begin the end of the tour, my friends. But I want to open the floor to anyone that may be here. To any questions about any of the artifacts you have seen today, any old world history that we may have talked about that you didn't quite get. And as we do again, I am contractually obligated by the Tysantopia History and Archaeology Association to say, if you did enjoy this tour, please follow. Please make sure to follow so you know when there's more tours or when there's more streams. And we have joined the museum dashboard on Discord. I believe it's !Discord. There's also a panel. Also down below the stream, there should be a link to it as well. It's where the museum, along with anyone else streaming on this channel, posts when they're going to be live and with what, and people can discuss not only the old world and Tysantopia, but anything on your mind. But yes, this is where we have to end the show today. I want to say to everyone that came out, I mean everyone, thank you so much. This has been an amazing tour. I'm glad to have patrons like you. To both those of you, Spirit, Toupee, Crit, that were talking and asking questions, thank you. To those of you that were lurking and enjoying learning, thank you. I love teaching people about history and the old world. I'm glad there's people that still care about it. Now, I hope to see everyone real soon. Have a great day. Good night.